Hour 2 of the Lombardi Line presented by DraftKings as we welcome you back to VSiN and DraftKings Network alongside former NFL executive Michael Lombardi, Stormy Buonantony with you. Lots of NFL news and notes to get to. We've also got Michael's top 5 teams that need to get the draft right in 2024. And with the NBA regular season in the past, Michael, we begin the Western Conference play-in portion of the postseason coming up tonight. 2 really interesting games here with the Lakers, who are still getting a point against the Pelicans to start, and the Warriors laying 2.5 against the Kings.
It's remarkable, right? And you go through it, the Pelicans only won 1 game in the regular season. Most of them were blowouts by the Lakers going back to April 14th. And yet here they are, the Lakers. And so there's something that doesn't meet the eye here. I know you bet the Lakers, but there's a lot of people that think maybe the Lakers are trying to avoid having to play Denver in the first round. Is that the case? I mean, look, you got to beat somebody to be a champion. You just can't waltz your way. You can't play Navy and get to the finals. You know, you're going to have to play a good team at some point, right? So I don't understand the logic behind it. But in the NBA, sometimes they figure out a way to where maybe this is the better seed. I would expect the Lakers, if Anthony Davis and LeBron are going, I mean, they've proven that they are the better team than the Pelicans.
Yeah, they just beat them on Sunday at Smoothie King Arena, 124-108 to close out the regular season. And I do take stock in that. I understand that the line is fishy. I understand there's a perception that they might want to lose this game, win the next one so that they can avoid playing the Denver Nuggets in the first round of the postseason. But I just think that's a ridiculous notion. If that does happen, then more credit to those of you betting the Pelicans in this spot. But I just think that it would be silly for them to lose intentionally and then risk a one and done against what will most likely be the Golden State Warriors and Steph Curry, who have been playing well lately. I just don't get it. I understand that the record for the Lakers against Denver has not been successful in the past. They've lost their last 8, but you're going to have to play Denver eventually, even if you win that round 1 series. So you're going to have to go through Denver at some point in the Western Conference. I would prefer to go against them earlier rather than later, given the fact that the Lakers are healthy right now.
Yeah, no question. And I mean, look, the last time they played, April 14th, Zion was minus 21 on the court. Ingram was minus 28. I mean, they couldn't do anything against them. And so, now I understand that there'll be a different sense of urgency. There's going to be a different atmosphere in the Smoothie Arena down there. And, I'm sure New Orleans is going to come out in full support. But if the Lakers play their game and they're in this thing, I think it's kind of hard for me to imagine they're not going to win this one.
In 38 minutes on Sunday, LeBron, 28 points, 17 assists, 11 rebounds, 5 steals. AD, 30 points on 13 to 17 from the floor, 11 rebounds. LA's gone 11-4 their last 15 games. New Orleans 8-7 in that span. Brandon Ingram's back for the Pelicans, but his first game on the court was the other day in nearly a month. The integration wasn't seamless. Zion appears out of gas to me. There's a lot of layers to this. I just think that the Lakers would not be doing themselves the favor that the public perceives them to be doing if they lose this game. Just my 2 cents on it. I bet the Lakers plus 1.5.
I agree.
So
I agree with you. I think, to me, they come in, and why play one more game than you have to?
Yep.
Why play one more game than you have to?
Exactly. And also the other big news in the NBA today, that Giannis will miss at least this first game in the first round of the Eastern Conference against the Indiana Pacers. They're hopeful that he'll be able to return later in the series, but we've seen a significant price shift in the series. The Bucks are still favored, but only around minus 135 right now, when it opened minus 350. And in that first game, Indiana favored by 1 in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, look, Indiana, as you got to give them credit, they've played really well. Halliburton's been outstanding all season. And, I think ultimately, when you break this down, they just have not played well since Doc's been there. Mm-hmm. The Bucks, with Giannis and without Giannis, are 17-19 over that time. There's been no continuity. Dame Lillard, there hasn't been any flow to their game. And when you're 2 games below 500 with that payroll and that kind of players, Middleton, Lillard, Giannis, there's something more there than meets the eye. And look, Indiana's had one hell of a season this year. And so I think ultimately, this is going to be, without Giannis, this is going to be a better series than we thought it could be if Giannis played. But I think it was going to be a good one regardless, because Milwaukee's not playing anywhere near the level we expected.
I'm staring at that Pacers in 6 at 4-1 right now. One last follow-up on this, if we can, before we move on. I did want to ask you just about Giannis's health in general, because being with all of your experience in the NFL, the way that injuries can take a toll. He's had 4 consecutive lower body left leg injuries: hamstring, the sore knee issues, the tendinopathy, and now the calf strain. Are we just asking for something worse to happen at this point?
Yeah, I think you got to be really careful, right? And I think there's that delicate balance of, careful, preparing, and then is this your moment, right? Is this your moment to go all in? And I think that's where you get into. And Giannis, from what I know and the people that have worked with him and coached him, he's such a competitive guy. He wants to be out there. He's going to work extra hard to get there. So, but yet you start to, when you get older, these little injuries become harder to overcome. That's why it's so fascinating that, a guy tears his Achilles. I know Bernard Longer tore his Achilles, and 2 months later he's out of, he's hitting golf balls again. I get that. But to go play football after Achilles injury at your age, at 36 with Kirk Cousins and 41 with Aaron Rodgers, I still think it's just too quick to assume it's all going to come back naturally.
Yeah, it just, with this thing with Giannis, it just feels eerily reminiscent of KD in 2019 when the doctor said, it can't get any worse. And so guys are calling him tough. He goes out there, plays through it, and how'd that result? Pops his Achilles. So I fear for Giannis, who's such a star of this game. Want to make sure that we have all of our guys at their peak. Okay, Michael, we saw last night as well, the WNBA draft has finally come and gone, wow. And Caitlin Clark is officially a member of the Indiana Fever. So all of those tickets that they have been selling are finally worthwhile, that they are getting Caitlin Clark.
Could there be a better team for her to go to? Midwest team, it's like perfect for her. And look, the enthusiasm for her, the women's game, it's certainly great for them, and it's going to be great to watch and see her there in Indiana. And I just think, to me, the excitement that she has brought to the game and to now the Fever organization is going to be unbelievable. So, I think if you're the commissioner of the Women's League, Kathy Elgenbert, I think you got to be really happy about this moment, because, she's going to help the game. And if you're a player in the NBA, don't get mad at her. Embrace her, because she's going to bring more revenue and she's going to bring more ratings, and more ratings means more money for everybody.
Yeah, and maybe her game translates right away, maybe it doesn't, but everybody keeps talking about the talent that she's going to be playing against. She's also going to be playing with a lot of better talent than she had at Iowa. So it's that should optimize her talents, right? But it was so fun, though, watching the draft last night, seeing all of the fans that were filling the stands at Cambridge Fieldhouse. I mean, seats just filled to watch her get drafted. Caitlin. It's awesome.
Look at that. Is that awesome? Look at it. This is why it unifies people. Look at the crowd. Look at the crowd there. It's great. This is what we want in sports. Sports brings us together. And there's a certain section of sports that tries to keep us apart. But for the most part, the beautiful thing about sports is it unifies people. We all root for somebody or root for a team, and we don't talk politics or talk things that tend to alienate everybody. It brings people together. And this is tremendous for the league. Yeah. I really do. That's why I find it hard to believe that, people would resent this or have a commentary of it. Look, the Stanford's Cameron Brink. She went second. Now Los Angeles gets a good, the league's going to continue to get better. And we're recognizing these collegiate girls more now than we ever have.
The average resale price for Fever tickets this coming season is triple what it was a year ago. You could count on one hand the number of national TV games they had. That's bumped up to 36 of their 40 upcoming games. And Caitlin Clark's jerseys apparently at Fanatics sold out within a couple of hours since she was announced the number 1 overall pick. Unbelievable. Cannot wait to see how that translates and how the viewership translates. But before we hit this break, Michael, we have to hit what's on Michael's mind, because you got an unbelievable email this week.
Yeah. So on the podcast, I asked the question. Ben Wright filled in for Femi, who's been on his honeymoon. He's coming back on Thursday. And so we were talking about why Brazilians love the Packers, right? Why do they love the Packers so much? And I didn't have an answer for it. But fortunately for technology, people can reach out to you and you get an answer. And so I had a fan who said he listens to the GM Shuffle. And he said the reason, he's from Brazil, and the reason people love, the Brazilians love the Packers is because Green Bay's colors are basically the colors of Brazil. Okay, so it represents most of their sports teams down there, the green and gold. And so the soccer club and all the teams down there. And so that's kind of is one of the major reasons why they do it. And so they identify with the colors of the team, and then they identify with the ability that it links them together, right? And so not only do the colors, but they have this, it said, I'll read it to you, the most famous moment was when a Brazilian, was made to play. Well, I'll read it to you. The Packers emblem represents a soccer team in Brazil, and it's one of the most famous moments in Brazil where many of the fans, it was like Rodgers against the Lion, and the broadcaster made this epic comparison about what he did, which then united everybody to Green Bay. So it's the colors and the ability to link soccer to football based on the emblem.
How cool is that? Cannot wait for that. The second day of the NFL season after the defending Super Bowl champion Chiefs kick things off on Thursday Night Football. This game will be that following Friday. Green Bay's getting points where they might have a little home field advantage in Sao Paulo. Plus 1.5, total 50 against the Eagles. We'll be right back.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Stormy Buonantony, on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
The Lombardi Line with special in-studio guest, the one and only Will Hill, for the first time in the flesh, joining us, Michael. I'm so excited to see you in person. I've known you for a few years now and never got the opportunity to be face-to-face. How are you?
This is great. I'm good. I forgot to bring a pen. I was hoping to get an autograph from you, but this is good. Good to see you guys.
See, I need the autograph from him, though, Michael, because he's the one that runs all the teams and sets all the TV stations, right?
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, and he was complaining. Can you imagine the audacity that he's complaining to me about when the Masters start? And I think he could not get reception for the Masters if they found out he was complaining. I mean, somehow they would figure out how to block him from watching if they knew he was complaining about the start times. I mean, like, the Masters is as good a run tournament as anybody, and my man could find fault with it. It's just perfect. I loved it. I'm like, why don't you call Fred Ridley up and tell him?
Saturday afternoon, they're not showing any live golf, but you know what? We got through it. It was nice to fade Tiger Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
But he could be a little better, but it's still pretty good.
See, I bet him to make the cut, and then you knew, though, after he had to play 23 on Friday, that it was inevitably going to fall off after that.
They posted 72.5 on Saturday and 72.5 on Sunday, expecting him to play par or better. Some bets are just some bets they just put on TV for you. There's so much public support for him too. People want to bet on him, root for him. It's a good story, but sometimes as better as you got to bet against the story.
So I did not give you your proper introduction because I was so excited to see him in person. If this is your first time hanging out with us and hearing Will's voice, although that's impossible if you watch VSiN because he's obviously with us every single week. But Will Hill, host of the Should Have Bet More podcast, contributor here at VSiN. You're also part of the Bear Bets podcast with Chris Felica. Before we get into some of these NBA bets, which we will, what can people expect on the pod this week? What do you have going on?
Aaron Schatz tomorrow talking NFL, win totals, off-season stuff, underrated teams, overrated teams. Look ahead to some draft, which is, we got 7-8 days away, so it's a lot of fun. Can't wait.
What is the one draft bet that you made? Stormy's already announced that she's engaged. So what is the one that you have jumped on so far?
You know, it's really hard. There's just so many more eyeballs on it now. It's not like it was in past years where these lines stay the same. I would say the one that's out there now that you could still bet, I'll say Jets to take an offensive lineman. You can still get that at plus money. I don't buy this idea that, hey, they completely fixed their offensive line. They got a bunch of older players, guys that are hurt. It's almost like pitchers in baseball where, yes, you can only use 5 in a starting rotation, but you know 1 or 2 is going to get hurt. I don't buy this idea that they're just, hey, we're completely fine with the offensive line. They're going to go with a receiver. Maybe they will, and I'm curious what you think, Lombardi. Maybe they go with Bowers, but I still think Jets at plus money to take a wide receiver, to take an offensive lineman is still worth the bet. I don't think they've completely solved it.
Well, I think that's the strength of the draft where they pick, and I think they need it. And so they can't be naive enough to believe that Tyron Smith is going to stay healthy for 17 games. There's been no evidence of that over the last 3 years. And they can't believe that, Morgan Moses is going to be the answer at right tackle. So I agree with you. Like, look, if you're going to if you're all in, you might as well get yourself a really good lineman and see if he can get in there and play well for you. So I'm with you on that. I think they have to go in that direction.
Plus, I mean, Rodgers is the whole thing. Their whole job, everyone in the building, their job depends on Rodgers being healthy and staying healthy. Like, you can't have another season of last year where week 2, week 3, he gets hurt and then he's gone. Like, you need to give this thing a chance. This is probably the last chance, with Rodgers, with this staff, where, hey, let's make sure he's healthy. Let's do everything we can to protect him. Let's give ourselves a chance to have a chance where we got a defense, we got Wilson. We won 7 games with bottom tier quarterback play. I mean, you can't have worse quarterback play than they had last year. Give the Rodgers era a chance and protect them. So I think Rodgers Jets to take an offensive lineman, probably decent bet. But again, there's so many eyeballs in this stuff. I know Circa just put up stuff, I think, yesterday. Yeah. It's not like there's a million different things to bet. It's, if you're going to bet, if you're looking for value, you really dig in. Some of the players that are lower on the board, like in the hundreds, you put over-unders on them. It's hard to get all of those guys right. But I don't know. I mean, they don't know what order these quarterbacks are going in. I don't really have an idea of what order these quarterbacks are going. After Caleb Williams, I mean, it's kind of anybody's guess. I don't feel like I have any information that they don't have.
Yeah, definitely tread lightly when you're betting some of these markets for sure. But I'm dead on with you about the offensive lineman for the Jets because, I mean, it was musical chairs rotating constantly. They had 13 different O-line combinations. And because you brought in guys that have had health issues, you might as well try to bolster that group as much as you possibly can. Let's turn our attention to the NBA, though, because I know this is a sport you're heavily involved in. You bet all the time. 2 play-in games coming up tonight in the Western Conference. Are you buying the thought process that the Lakers might not want to win this game to avoid Denver? I bet the Lakers today, so I really hope that's not the case.
I'm going to bet them with you, too. I like the Lakers here. They're not going to do that. They're better off playing the Thunder than the Nuggets. The Nuggets are still the best team. Oh, that was a strange loss Friday night against the Spurs to blow that lead. They match up really well with the Pelicans. They beat them handily in the the midseason tournament in that championship. They beat them handily the other day. They scored 70 points in the first half the other day. 55 were in the point. They're just bigger than New Orleans. And New Orleans doesn't have an answer for LeBron. You're going to put Zion probably in a situation where he has to defend LeBron one-on-one. New Orleans is a smaller team. They don't have a great answer at center. They get a lot of good minutes out of Alvarado, but Alvarado's a tiny player. The smallest guy the Lakers play is 6'4", 6'5". The Lakers are a big team, and I think LeBron is going to be, you could question the motivation. I go the opposite way. He's going to be very motivated to win this game and give himself 3 or 4 days off to get ready for the playoffs here. So I think this is a good matchup here for the Lakers.
And what about the Kings game against the Warriors? I mean, where do you see the Warriors? Just say the Warriors don't win this game and they're out. Where do they go? How do they change the trajectory of their team?
It's hard. I mean, you know this. The hardest thing in sports is when you're old and when you're expensive, and that's what they are. But look, if they don't win anything for another 5 years, I mean, they won plenty of championships. They had a good run. I like the Warriors tonight. I think it's hard to pick against Curry. It's interesting. These teams, they're very familiar with each other. They've played 11 times in the last 365 days. The 7-game series last year in the playoffs, then 4 times this season. But they haven't played in a long time. Out of those 4 matchups, 3 were before New Year's. It was 2 around Halloween. They played around Thanksgiving. Then they played in January. So they haven't played each other in a long time. It's hard to go against Curry. It really is. I think they'll put Sabonis in pick and roll. They'll probably, put the Kings in a situation where they have to double the ball, and Golden State will basically be playing 4-on-3. It's interesting, though, a lot of the guys Curry hunts on defense, Herter and Monk, they're not there, so maybe the Kings can hold up a little better defensively. I do think the Kings are being dismissed a little bit. At the end of the day, it is hard to go against Curry. He's the best player on the court, and I would think they would win, but I do think Sacramento's just being written off here like they have no chance. They are home. They have played well against Golden State at times. Fox is a tremendous player. I don't know that Golden State has a great answer for Fox, so it's a lean to Golden State, but I'd be careful here. I feel like people are dismissing the Kings a little too quickly.
Spread 2.5, total 223.5. As you do look at some of those set playoff series, though, that we already do know the prices on, were there any that you decided to fire on right away?
I like Dallas. I mean, Woj tweeted out yesterday that Kawhi's healthy, he's fine, the knee's fine. We've heard that before. I mean, he has a habit of getting hurt. I know it's your guy, San Diego State, but you know this as well as anyone. He has a habit of getting hurt and staying hurt, and the updates are not always clear. They're not always honest. And just look, even if both teams are at full strength, Dallas has really pushed the Clippers when the Clippers had better teams. Luka's really done well against the Clippers, and now Luka's got a team that defends better. They've got Kyrie, who's just kind of, went about his business and played basketball. They've really played well the last quarter or so of the season since the trade deadline. The Clippers have been really up and down, and the Clippers just look old and slow at times. I think this is a good series. It's a long series. I wouldn't be shocked if it goes 7, but I like Dallas to win this series.
All right, let's go to the elephant in the room here. Give me your breakdown. I think this is the biggest game in the 76ers process era. If they don't beat Miami at home and they have to become the 8th seed, assuming they can beat, Atlanta in the next round, do they tear the team down? Like, where do they go?
You would know that better than me. I would say the biggest game was the game that I'm still financially recovering from. That was against the Hawks in the 2021 Game 7 where Simmons passed up the dunk, that series where they blew a couple 20-something point leads. They have a talent advantage over the Heat. I think Miami, I don't think they can stay in front of them. Miami's going to play Hero, Duncan Robinson, Kevin Love. That's not an athletic enough team to stay in front of Philly, so Philly's going to have open looks. I think Miami's probably going to have to go to a zone, and that'll leave Philly in a situation where they have to make shots. My question here is, and Lombardi, you probably know this, maybe you know this better than me, how many minutes does Embiid play? Does Embiid play 40? Does he play 28? Does he play 32? What kind of shape is he in? Because while Philly's the better team, I mean, we know Miami. They're a grimy team. Miami's the tougher team. We know that. And, I mean, if this is a 3 or 4 point game with 5 minutes to go, who do you want? I want Miami because Miami's been the tougher team. Again, Philly's they have a good home court, but their home court hasn't been great in postseasons. They've lost a lot of big games at home. I mentioned the Atlanta game. They got eliminated by the Heat 2 years ago at home. It's not like you go into Philly and you say, hey, we can't win this game.
Before we let you go, we have to give you some hardware. I don't know how this hasn't been shipped to you at some point, but for anyone who remembers, a certain Will Hill won the 2023 Circa Hoops Invitational, and we have your trophy in the flesh. How did no one send this to you?
It's not 3 Super Bowl rings like Lombardi has, but I'll take it.
Yeah, Michael, why didn't you send over some bling to throw onto this trophy?
It's kind of, I got the grandkids own it already, so I can't give that away, Stormy. You know how that is.
Valid. Well, is it everything that you wanted and more?
Yes, it is.
Beautiful. So happy to have you in person. We really appreciate you coming in. This is awesome.
Appreciate it. Got to do it
Thanks,
more.
Will. Appreciate you, man.
Yes, absolutely. Can we talk about this real quickly? I know we have to hit the break, but if I am on vacation like Will is this week, the last thing I'm doing is coming to work.
I get the text, hey, you want to be on the show? I'm 5 minutes away. What am I going to do? Not do it? I got to do it.
I'm so glad you did it. Yeah. But if I were you, I would have said, sorry, Stormy, I'm out of here. Appreciate you, Will. We'll be right back on the Lombardi Line.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Stormy Bonatoni, on VSiN, the sports betting network.
For a limited time, we here at VSiN are offering 2 weeks of our exclusive betting splits for free when you sign up at VSiN.com/splits. The VSiN betting splits page is updated with DraftKings odds every 5 minutes, so you can see changes in all the action. Find out where the public's betting based on the number of tickets and where the money doesn't match the public opinion. You can check out not just today's action and games, but future events as well. Take advantage, though. This is a limited time offer. VSiN.com/splits is how you can claim your free 2-week access to VSiN's betting splits. Alongside Michael Lombardi, Stormy Bonatoni with you. How good was that, Michael, to have Will Hill in person, though? I didn't realize, this is a weird thing to say when you only see somebody over Zoom or Skype or over the television, but much taller in person.
Yeah, it's funny because in this world that we live in, you can go a long time without meeting anybody or talk. Just talk on the phone or you talk via text, and so there's not that direct communication. So it's always good to see him out there, and he does a great job. I mean, look, I kid him all the time about all the things he's involved with, but he's really good at all of them. I mean, he is truly a professional handicapper who understands all the sports, and like Mike Somich and others we have here at the network, they do a great job on handicapping all the different sports, and I tip my hat to them because I'm knee-deep in football and have a hard time handling that, and these guys are doing it in all sports.
Yeah, super appreciative of him taking some time to step in studio with us, considering he's here on vacation with the family. Will's the best. If you haven't already, make sure you check out the Shoulda Bet More podcast. You can get it wherever you get your podcast. Let's get back into a little bit of our NFL talk, specifically geared toward the draft, Michael, because you put together your list of your top 5 teams that need to get the draft correct, that this draft is critical for them to have success. Which team do you want to discuss first?
Well, let's start with Dallas, Femi's team, because I think when you talk about going into the draft and you talk about the pressure that's on you in the draft. A lot of that's related to the offseason. If we go back to the first hour of our show today, you asked me about the Bengals, and I said, look, they're perfectly situated to go into the draft and they could play a game. It's one of Al Davis's pet peeves. He wanted to have the team set, not that they were great, but you could go in the draft and you could play a game if you played the game the day before the draft. The Cowboys can't really play a game before this draft. They have a lot of needs, and they're going to have to hit with those players. They suffered a lot of losses in free agency. They haven't seemed to make any progress in terms of getting their players signed, in terms of CeeDee Lamb in the future, Micah Parsons in the future. What do they do with Dak? So this is a big draft, and this draft is big for next year's team. This could be a great draft for the Cowboys, but it may not happen for them until next year's team, and then it won't do them any good. They have to get an impact from this draft, and it's always, always, always hard to do that, especially when you're a playoff team trying to hit with picks in the 20s.
They are minus 175 to take an offensive lineman with their first pick in this year's draft. They have 7 picks in the draft, including the first round, number 24 overall. And obviously the offensive line needs to be fixed. They lose Tyron Smith. They lose 2 offensive linemen in free agency. So probably need to get that. Probably need a wide receiver opposite CeeDee Lamb whenever he gets that new deal signed. Who's running the ball for this team? Tony Pollard is gone, and I don't think anybody's saying, hey, RB1, Rico Dowdle, we're super excited. So what are some of the, I guess, immediate priorities? If you're first and second round with the Dallas Cowboys, what do you need to get done?
I think the offensive line, and that's going to be where they have to address first. They take Tyler Smith and move him out to left tackle, or they keep him at left guard. I think that's got to be a concern. Running back's a huge concern. With Brandon Cooks and Lamb, you should be okay. Jake Ferguson did a nice job at tight end for them, but they need that running back. They need somebody who's going to, make those explosive plays. Remember, Pollard 2 years ago, before the injury, the knee injury, he was averaging 10 yards a reception. And then let's go defensively. I mean, Mike Zimmer will do a good job for them defensively. There's no question that that'll really be able to fill in the void of losing Dan Quinn. But can they play man-to-man? Are they going to be good enough to play man-to-man on the back end? And do they have enough front guys to handle it all? He signed Eric Kendricks to give him a player that he's comfortable with, but they lost Van Der Esch. Can Damian Clark come in and play well for them? We shall see. I think there's a lot of questions defensively. So offensive line and then defensive front, to me, because Maisie Smith really never did what they needed him to do last year. I think they're going to need to really improve in that area. But to me, the glaring reason why they did not play as well on the road as they did at home is because that offensive line didn't protect as well.
Yeah, 3 straight 12-win seasons for the Dallas Cowboys, nothing to show for it in the playoffs. And this offseason, they haven't done much, if anything, to make themselves better yet. So the draft will be critical. Number 2 on your list is the Buffalo Bills, who do have 10 picks in this year's draft, tied for the most of any team this season. Busy offseason so far. They part ways with Jordan Poyer, Tre'Davious White, Gabe Davis, most notably Stephon Diggs. What's most important for them this year?
Well, I mean, obviously, the level of expectations coinciding with the team they have. They've got the great Josh Allen who can make plays. I think this is a big year for McDermott, right? Mm-hmm. And he's lost both his starting safeties. Now he's got Taylor Rapp, who was on the team last year, and he signed Mike Edwards from the Chiefs. So he's got 2 veteran safeties, which if you're going to run McDermott's scheme, you have to have that. It's critical. They're a communicator. They made a great deal to get Rasul Douglas, which helped them offset the loss, really, of Tre'Davious White, because they were able to get a cover corner out there. I don't know if this defense is good enough. Really, Milano and Bernard, they're so small, they get pushed around a little bit. They brought Daquan Jones back. I think they really need a receiver and a defensive front 7 guy. And they've signed guys. Look, they've signed Austin Johnson. They signed Deshaun Williams from Carolina. But they need a big physical presence inside. Hard to get down there where you're picking at 26. Mm-hmm. I think I would suspect they move up to get a receiver that they like in the draft to go along with to give them that one more guy, because they signed Curtis Samuel. They're a 12 team with the 2 tight ends, but I still think they need that receiver. I could see them going from where they are, moving up a little bit to get the guy that they feel could really come in and start right away.
Yeah, we'll see if they trade up to get a higher level prospect. They're minus 280 to take a wide receiver with their first selection in the draft. The Bills, by the way, have never drafted a wide receiver the first 2 days under GM Brandon Beane, so a new need for them certainly. How about New England? 8 picks in the draft, highlighted by that number 3 overall selection.
Well, that's critical for New England because for all the talk about how the Kraft family basically won the 6 Super Bowls and Belichick had nothing to do with it and how he couldn't really draft or do anything, that they had to cover for all his mistakes, I think, to me, this is a critical draft. And Elliott will do a good job. Elliott Wolf, the new GM. But they're going to have to figure out, they got to hit with the quarterback, right? They've got to get that right. And then they got to fix the left tackle position. Right now, Connor McDermott's they're starting at left tackle. Defensively, they were good enough last year. They'll get Gonzalez back, who was outstanding as a rookie, but he got hurt, right? They have Peppers, who played really well for them. They brought Duger back. He's very good. So Marcus Jones is one of their better return specialist kind of player, but he was out most of the season with injury. This team had a lot of injuries last year, but I think they've got to hit. The pressure on this team is the quarterback.
Jacoby Brissett, the guy in the room right now on a 1-year deal, but Drake May, a -130 favorite to go number 3 overall. J.J. McCarthy sitting +200. Jaden Daniels +250. The team picking above them in the draft at number 2, the Washington Commanders with new head coach Dan Quinn. They have 3 picks in the top 40, 4 picks in the top 100. Michael, lots of opportunity for them, but they need to get it right.
Well, I mean, look, no team was busier in free agency than the Washington team. From a new kicker in Brandon McManus to 5 new starters on defense, 6 new starters on offense. I mean, they've been really busy trying to improve the depth of their team. And it's all going to come down to the quarterbacking position. They signed Marcus Mariota as the backup. They signed Jeff Driscoll. They have Jake Fromm. But, I mean, none of those are the answer. None of those are the answer. They got to hit with the pick. They've made their team better. There's no question about that. They've made their team improved, adding some of these players. But it's really going to come down to how good of a quarterback. If they take Daniels and he stays healthy, they certainly have a chance because Dotson and McLaurin are good receivers, you know, and they signed Eckler to be the starting running back to go along with Brian Robinson. They've got a chance, but to me it comes down. This draft is going to be marked by Adam Peters' ability to pick the right quarterback.
And Jaden Daniels is up to a -275 favorite right now to be that guy at DraftKings. Rounding out your top 5 teams with the most critical draft this year, Denver, 8 picks, including number 12 overall, no second-round selection. They paid $86 million to offload Russell Wilson. So what do they do at quarterback? They need a corner. They need an edge rusher. How important is this draft for Sean Payton?
Well, it's so important for Sean because right now Jarrett Stidham's the only quarterback on the roster. Ben DiNucci's the backup. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you? I mean, if you just are paying attention, what does that say? They can't. I mean, if they thought Stidham was good, they would sign a veteran. If they thought Stidham was the starter, they would sign a veteran and kind of move away. I think they're telling you very clearly we're going to pick a quarterback and we're going to coach the hell out of him. And that's why it's such an important draft. Because if they get the right coach, a right player, to go along with a really good offensive coach and Sean Payton, they've got a really good chance. It's an important draft for Sean. Now, look, here's what we do know about Sean. He'll trade away a bunch of next year's pick to get this year right. And I think that'll determine what he does. The quarterback is key for them. And they're screaming, if you just look at their depth chart, we're going to pick a quarterback.
One of many quarterback-needy teams in this year's draft. Another team that there's been conversation about, will they take a quarterback? Will they trade up? Their current QB1 spoke to the media yesterday. We'll dive into that and more NFL news when we return on the Lombardi Line. We'll be right back.
This is the Lombardi Line with former NFL executive Michael Lombardi. Now here is your host, Stormy Buonantony, on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Don't miss out on any of the NBA playoff action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From the play-in tournament beginning tonight through the finals, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and more. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code VSiN. New customers, when you use that code, bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's a code VSiN, VSIN, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. We're wrapping up this Tuesday edition of the Lombardi Line on VSiN and DraftKings Network. Michael Lombardi and Stormy Buonantony with you. And plenty of headlines coming out of these initial days of voluntary workouts in the NFL. Michael, guys are hitting the podium, and somebody with some some crazy eyes, which we'll see in a moment. Talked to media this week about his standing as QB1 with the New York Giants and how his healing is going. Let's hear from Daniel Jones real quickly.
It's a competitive league, so the best way to handle that, I think, is to focus on what I'm doing, focus on myself, and making sure that I'm, one, healthy, and then ready to play good football.
If you're healthy, this summer in training camp, which you hope to be, and going on into the season, you feel you're the best quarterback that the Giants can have to start their season with?
I do, yes.
What is he expected to say there? Of course, yes, that is what I plan. But I do love that, by the way, more viral than the comments.
I don't even.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I stink. I'm not even sure why I signed the contract. I don't want to start or anything. Like, come on. It's so ridiculous, that question. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say, yeah, some of these questions are brutal, but more viral than I feel like his comments about being ready for training camp and coming back were those Adam Gase-like eyeballs that he was donning at the podium.
Yeah, I mean, look, it was kind of like, whoa, he kind of kept them right there in the center. It's like, was he looking right through me? Look, I think the Giants have made it very clear with their actions, and don't confuse actions with rhetoric, right? They've made it very clear since the start of the offseason. Russell Wilson shows up. They were active. They're active in going to get a quarterback. They visited everybody. The people that they leak information to has them really looking at quarterbacks. So I think, to me, the Giants are at the point where they're not looking at next year. They're looking at, do we want to continue going down the Daniel Jones road? And if you're Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, you're basically saying, why, there's no evidence to support it. They overreacted to the season that he had when they made the playoffs, and they never came 30 points close to Philly in either game that counted. So I think it's a smart play for the Giants. Look, they could take an offensive lineman. Everybody wants them to take a receiver. God knows they need more skill. But this is going to be a hard game because without Barkley in their backfield, right? Singletary's a good player, but he ain't Barkley. And he had a good year for Houston, but can he count on that? I know he's an ex-Buffalo player, but, Daniel Jones has got a lot of pressure on him, but so does the whole Giant organization because they miscalculated. They had a chance to get a quarterback, and now they're too late in trying to get one that could potentially see where they put their head coach and their GM.
Yeah, currently sitting in that number 6 position. We'll see if they do decide to trade up in this year's draft. Minus 225 to take a wide receiver, plus 175 to go quarterback, plus 950 on the offensive line. But another layer to the Daniel Jones stuff, Michael. Yes, he's coming off an injury, but he's had numerous injuries. Like, in addition to the torn ACL, all of the neck issues that he's had, while the production was only there for one season, he's been injured more than he's been productive. So if I'm the Giants, that's something that would worry me a lot on Daniel Jones moving forward.
No question. It worries you, the injury, and he has to run to really be effective, right? He has to show that he can move around. And look, the thing that, forget what everybody thinks. He's never thrown the ball for over 7 yards per attempt in his career. So he never gets the ball down the field. And if you're a quarterback who doesn't make plays down the field, you're not going to play very long. So I think, to me, this is why, and that's what I said when they gave him the money. Like, it's one thing to bring him in there and to have him as your quarterback, but you don't have to who's your competition for him? I didn't see any competition, but they obviously did, and they paid him, and now they're paying a price.
Giants season win total sitting at 6.5, and it is juiced to the under meanwhile. And interesting to your point that they have been clearly doing their due diligence on a quarterback. So they're one of those wild cards in the first round in those first few picks. I'm very curious to see what they ultimately end up doing. So a team that went from worst to first in the Houston Texans, their head coach DeMeco Ryans spoke to the media yesterday as well. And he was asked a lot about expectations. He made it clear paying attention to the hype is not something that he is about. Take a listen.
I appreciate the question, but we're always hunting. That doesn't change for us. We're always hunting. Expectations on the outside, whatever that may be, it really doesn't change who we are, right? It doesn't, the expectations from the outside don't permeate inside our building, and now we have to change what we're doing just because of outside expectations. It really doesn't matter, right? My message, our focus as a team is it's always been consistent, the same as it was last year, is, man, you show up and we continue to get better every single day. You're the best at your position, you're the best for our team, then that's what wins games, right? For us, when everybody is really striving, putting the work in, right, to be better. And that's what it's all about. We don't care about expectations. Talk doesn't win games. We have to go out and play good football when that time comes.
And Michael, that was my curiosity. This team did not have any expectations going into last year with a rookie quarterback. Now they have them. So I love that mentality from D'Amico.
Right, and they've added 14 players in free agency this year through trades, through signings, right? And they have a bunch of draft picks, although they don't have a first-round pick. You know, they have 9 draft picks now. They start at 42 and they end up at 247. So when you're sitting there in your Nick Cesario and you're saying, what do I do here, right? So from pick 123 to 247, those guys might have a hard time making your team because you've signed so many guys and you've got so many young players. So does he use some of those picks to trade up to get more value? I would suspect that's what he does. Because without a first-round pick, I could see him taking 42 and trying to move up to get the best player that he thinks is remaining on the board at 33 or 34.
Was really
But this team is the hunted one. Yeah. They are. There's no question. Everybody knows they're for real now.
I was really impressed with a lot of the additions that they did make, though. Like you think about Stephon Diggs, regardless of the personality, the talent potential, given already what's in that wide receiver room for C.J. Stroud to be throwing it to, Daniil Hunter, Azeez Al-Shaair, Joe Mixon, like a lot of different things are positive, I think, for Houston. But we've talked about this a lot. The amount of spending that they've done the last couple of years has kind of not been talked about a whole lot. It's been pricey.
Yeah, no question. Look, give them credit, right? Even when they were down, the owner was willing to spend money. And that's really important. And Nick has been very aggressive. He's been very aggressive. And what they were talking about, what D'Amico was talking about, is always on the hunt. This team has been very aggressive. And, redoing Diggs' contract, eliminating the years, giving him almost $5 million more than they had to. They're willing to spend money, and the McNair family clearly is all in, and I think this is their big moment, right? They've got a really good young quarterback. They got a good coaching staff. They're very well coached in the kicking game. They're only going to get better on defense because of D'Amico and add more defensive front players to the team. And then, of course, offensively, they've got enough weapons there that they can do some damage.
Yeah, C.J. Stroud, their young quarterback, among the 6 shortest shots to be the MVP in 2024. Give you a little support for those expectations in Houston. One more real quickly. Defending Super Bowl champion quarterback Patrick Mahomes was talking about his new weapon, Marquise Brown.
With Hollywood, I think you see the speed. Instantly. But I think what I've liked so far is how hard he works. He's been at all the work. He's been at the workouts. He's been at the route running. And he wants more. He wants to continue to push himself more and more. And I think he has a great role in this offense, the way he's able to run routes, the way he's able to stretch the field. I think he'll be even different than you've seen him before, because I think we could utilize him in different ways that I think he hasn't been utilized in yet.
That's interesting, Michael. Different than we've seen before?
Well, he's got to stay healthy, right? We know that. He has not been always the healthiest guy, and he's got, look, Baltimore trades him and Arizona lets him go. There are 2 teams that had him, and they see. Now, in Kansas City, a lot of this is kind of the pressure's off him because he's got the great quarterback. To me, they need an outside threat because Kelsey, where is Kelsey going to be, right? We see Kelsey, he's on tour. This offseason for Kelsey is going to be fascinating when he comes back into camp. I'm sure he'll be in shape, but at 36 years old, being in shape and being able to play at a high level are 2 different things. So this Kansas City team still needs an offensive tackle. They still need a left tackle. They play the style that was conducive for them to win last year. I think they're going to have to continue to play that style, and Hollywood Brown's not going to force them out of it.
And still some questions, of course, of their young receiver, Rashee Rice, due to the issue that happened in Dallas on the freeway. Andy Reid said that he will remotely participate during this phase 1 of offseason workout, but a lot of questions to be answered with Rashee Rice in that wide receiver room. Fun show, as always, Michael. Appreciate you, my friend.
Quick one.
Always quick.
Thank you, Stormy.
We are done for the day, but still more great content coming up on DraftKings Network and VSiN. Pablo Torre is next on DKN. Sharp Money on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.